It's time to take your business to the next level, the boss level. These are the premier business owner strategies and successes being utilized by the industry's top talent today. Rock your business like a boss, a VO boss. Now let's welcome your host, Ann Ganguza.
Hey everyone, welcome to the voboss podcast and the Boss Superpower series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I'm here with my amazing special guest co-hosts, Boss Lady Lau Lapidez. Hey, Lau.
Hey, Ann.
So, Lau, I am very excited that it's early morning and I have my coffee.
Me too. What would we do without it?
I know. So many people have contacted me and said, it sounds like you and I in the booth in our podcast are just sharing a cup of coffee and shooting the breeze, having a conversation.
Highball in the water, which you got to do in between the coffee.
That's right.
Right? Just to wash the vocal folds out.
Let me share. There's my big old water bottle with the coffee.
And then I'm going to show everyone. I think everyone already knows this about us. Watch this. We're going to do this as well.
I love your lipstick. Oh, so here's mine.
Wonder Twin Powers activate!
Right? Wonder Powers activate. So, yeah, my red. But you know what, guys? Maybe one of these days I'm going to switch it up.
Oh, you should. You should. Naked lips. Let's see what naked lips look like without the red. That would be fun.
I feel like I'm so pale. But I feel like I'm so
You
pale.
are pale, but that's your beauty.
Pale without
that's your
my
beauty.
lips. Well,
But you know what I just noticed, Ann? You know what I just noticed? Literally,
What?
I just observed this. That we just used like three props
oh
in
my
our
God.
world.
We totally did.
And we were talking all the way through that, as we always do. And we had no problem using the props,
Right.
talking and connecting, getting our points across,
Mhm.
right? And that suddenly just dawned on me, like, that's a part of our world and finding
That's what
connection
we
and
do.
authenticity with each other.
That's what we do in the booth. Interesting. So let's chat about this. Let's take this apart because, you know, I do this a lot when I'm trying to talk to students about being authentic and believable with the script. And I think what just throws the whole wrench into it is that we've got these words in front of us. And all of a sudden, we don't know how to make them a part of us. And interestingly enough, like we just demonstrated, and bosses out there, you just heard it, even if you're not looking at us on YouTube, we were able to pick up objects and share ideas and have a conversation, engage with one another and not miss a beat. And we weren't even thinking about it. But what I want you guys to do is let's take a look at a more in-depth look at this to kind of figure out how we can take what we do in real life and translate it into the booth to be believable and authentic, right? Bring that real life into the booth. Now, one thing I think that was first and foremost, we talked about props, right? I always have my trusty lipstick or my cup of coffee, or probably most of you have one of these, a phone, or even just a mouse. Like you must have something in your booth.
I mean, it's endless what we have really with us. And
Yep.
doesn't that make us feel comforted and taken care of? And we identify with that brush in a lot of ways. It's part of our life.
I'm bringing all my makeup out.
I
I've even
know.
got jewelry in here, but in case I
I
need
think a
to change
man's
my
going to
jewelry.
pop up all of a sudden.
Gosh only knows I have tons of these, the headphones in there. So
Yeah.
now if you're trying to sound authentic and believable, one thing that we've covered multiple times in our podcast is there's not a perfect voice, right? There's all sorts of imperfection in our voices. And a lot of that can translate. I mean, not that everybody has a beautiful, wonderful voice all on their own. You don't have to perform behind the mic, right? It just is beautiful when we're engaging. And so props can help us to bring that scene to life, right? I know I just had a really wonderful workshop with the amazing Ellen Dubin, and she was talking about video game acting, and all of it was about blocking. Get up, move around, change your position. Do that because that's going to add that reality. And I'm always telling people, physicate behind the mic because that's going to make our vocals not perfect. For some reason, if we sit silent and straight behind the booth and we just read these words, hello, everyone, and welcome to the VO Boss podcast and the Boss Superpower series, right? So I'm just reading, but I'm not moving. That physical part of having a prop, having somebody to talk
I love
to,
this.
expressing with our bodies.
I love this. You know, you had me at physicate Like, I have never heard anyone use that word. So I'm stuck on physicate. But I would love voice actors to take it a step farther and just Johnny Depp it out. Like, take their script and go somewhere. Go to a store, go to a Starbucks, go to a library, go be in your car. And I want you to deliver the line as part of your universe.
What a great idea. Yeah.
Right? Doesn't the booth at times sort of pen us in? It becomes boxy to us in our minds, where we can literally move it outside, and see how it flows and works and physicate in that environment. Like if I'm ordering a drink or I'm getting food or I'm sitting at a table or I'm how would that line live within that universe versus only within the universe of the booth? I mean, ultimately, we can't do that on every script, but as part of your actor's work, it's well worth the time to do that so that you can bring that imagination back into the reality of your booth.
Sure.
And relive that, relive those moments.
What I like is even if, all right, let's say you've got a very dry corporate narration script, right? Maybe a company talking about their corporate responsibility, which may not be the most exciting stuff that you'll ever hear in the world. So for me, I'm always telling people, in order to kind of make it sound conversational, and it may not be written conversational at all or authentically, or it's basically like, here, this is stuff that you would typically read. You wouldn't necessarily say it out loud. You would typically just read it and then understand it as information that the company has provided to you. Take that script and put it into your own words. So you might have this long run-on line that's talking about corporate responsibility and all of these things about what we are doing to promote corporate responsibility in the workplace. And so take those words and just put it into your own words. And when you can take that sentence, which sometimes most of the time is a run-on sentence, and formulate your own speech about it or your own personal conversation about it to someone else, explain it to someone else, that's going to give you the idea behind the melody and the point of view that you want to take. And then all you do is, when you get in the booth, replace it with the words. But you have the intent, you have the point of view, you have the thought of, here, it's this idea, and then this idea, and then I'm going to combine it with this idea, and then that's the finished sentence. So it's kind of allowing you to regroup the information that's presented in the sentence in a very structured way and creating it in your own authentic way.
That's right. And you have to think of your work like you're layering a cake. You have the cake. To some degree, you have the cake. Even if you're at the beginning of your career, you still have some sort of cake. It might be a demo. It might be a beginner level studio, whatever it is. But I have to layer that over time and make it more interesting. So, for instance, if I were to take my pen, my trusty prop, and talk about my corporate responsibility script, I might take a note on that, because if I'm working in corporate, I'd be writing down minutes. I'd be taking notes as I went. And that puts me in a mindset, a frame. It gives me a framework to work by that when I'm corporate, and this is just my choice, it's not the right choice, it's just my choice. When I'm corporate, I always tend to write a few notes. I tend to take a moment to write things down. That changes my sound. It changes my pace. It changes everything.
So that physical action of writing something down. Also, the fact is what would you write down, right? If you had that big, long run-on sentence, right? What are the notes that you would take, right? Typically, those notes are the most important parts of the sentence, right? Those are the notes that you, as an actor, want to probably linger on a little longer. So when we talk about being authentic, and Lau and I, when we're speaking, our pacing isn't the same. Sometimes I pause like I just did, and sometimes my words are longer, and usually the ones that are longer are the ones I want her to hear more. And so when you're creating those notes, right, you're creating, this is an important point that I want to express to someone. So that word can be a little bit longer than maybe the word the or the word at the beginning. At the are just tiny little words that connect. Beginning is an important word. So at the beginning, notice how at the becomes almost like a 16th note in melody if I was speaking vocally. But in the beginning is an important word. So I'm going to linger on that.
We can't emphasize. You need to linger on that, right? If every word is the same and every word is important, nothing's important.
Right. It sounds monotonous. and robotic.
Like, what's important if every word is important, right?
Right.
But if I
Nothing is
take that
important.
pen and to me, this is a corporate moment or a business moment or whatever you want to call it, I think maybe I'm going to do bullets, how I would do in
Yeah.
real life. I'd take a sentence, I'd take a thought, and I'd pull a word or two out of it that are my emphasis words, my bullets, and do like little bullets and say, wow, out of that sentence, I got coffee. That was the word of the day for me, coffee as a bullet, so that when I go back and I review that for my speaking, I can remember, I can mark that copy, that the word coffee or the name of the coffee is really an emphasis for
Sure.
me.
Absolutely.
This helps me with that, like, because then I'm going to say coffee, like Starbucks coffee, and I'm
Right.
going to use this.
And the other thing, too, that I think is super important to remember is that we talked about you taking the script and going out into the real world with it, right? And start practicing with it and playing off of maybe someone else. Notice how you said, well, let's play off of someone else. I mean, when we started this podcast, you and I were talking to one another. We were engaging with one another.
Yep.
Well, when we're sitting here in our studios behind the mic with a script, you cannot be alone. Just saying, in your head, you must be the person that is speaking, and you must also have your imaginary friend that you're speaking to. And so you want to make sure that you are engaging with that audience member or that listener. And so you must talk to them, and they will have reactions for you or questions or comments, right? And you cannot just start talking to them like, oh gosh, have you ever had a friend, Law, that you can't get a word in edgewise? Like, and it's basically all about yada, 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 yada. It's all about them, right? All about their monologue. And so when you're behind the mic, don't let it be all about your monologue. Let it be about you engaging with your listener and allowing that listener a beat to acknowledge, to respond, to have a question, whatever that is. And I'm not talking about you have to time things, but that's an imaginary beat where I've said something and now, Law, I'm looking for you to respond, right? You just shook your head, right? You just went, So that's where I think we need to also invite that into our script, right? And invite that real life into our script.
You have to do it. It's so important. And have cheaters if you have trouble reaching that at times. Like in our daily life, we're not always great conversationalists, or we're not always in the mood for a talk or whatever. So you have to have those cheaters, whether you're talking to your kid or your dog or a photo or a video or something that stimulates you into thinking this is part of my daily experience. This is part of a reality of my life that I can connect to right now, that I can make real. Because I may not be in the mood or in the mindset every single day to connect to that particular audition or to connect to that particular product.
What I love is like literally like now that I've sat here and I'm taking notice and bosses out there, really, let's watch the YouTube video on this because I was just watching you, Law, and everything you said, you had your hands. Everything you said. And I was responding. I was shaking my head. I was going, So that's the parts that you have to play in your script. And believe it or not, even in a mundane medical narration script or in a telephone prompt, believe it or not, I'm always imagining, here I am and I'm talking to the listener and they've got their thoughts about me. Because maybe they don't want to listen to an automated attendant. Maybe they're angry. Maybe they're frustrated. But yet I will still talk to them with a tone where I'm like, I know you're frustrated. I know that you don't want to listen to my voice, but let me help you. Okay. And so that point of view, that intention, all of a sudden I'm speaking about intention so much lately. I think that intention before you even approach voicing or opening your mouth, I think your intention is so very important.
So very important. And, in the script, in this context, it would be an actor's intention because you're in a false reality. You're not in your real reality. You're in this technical reality.
Sure.
Right? But then you have intentions or purpose or whatever you call it in your daily life. And thinking about, wow, how much do I care about things? How much do I connect? How much do I try to make action happen and go well? Well, I have to bring that intention into the booth. I have to bring that into the booth. And I think if we were honest, we would say in our daily life, half the stuff we do is crap. It's like chores. It's like I have to go to the dump because I have to bring my trash.
I have to go to the dump.
Right? But how do I have a joyous life still being able to go to the dump? Well, I keep the intention alive that it's not about me hating to go to the dump. It's about me wanting to have a clean and wonderful household.
Absolutely.
That's really what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same with the script.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a disdain or I have a dislike for the delivery or for the language or for the
message,
content,
maybe, right? Yeah.
then I'm skirting the intent. What's the intent? Oh, the intent is to get you to understand how this new product worked or how the new program is going to help your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. It's like in acting, we call it the super intention, the super objective.
Maybe this is the wrong way to phrase it, but I think intention can change throughout the script. So you don't come at the script in the first couple of sentences with a particular intention and it stays that same intention, because a lot of times, right, we're there to tell a story. And so intention, point of view changes along with the storyline. And if you're not necessarily reading that, right, or understanding that, then you're not doing a good job at telling the story. Lau, at the beginning, when we were talking about coffee, I was like, oh, thank God, coffee. It was that sense of relief. And then we started talking about, well, my lipstick. I get excited, right?
Yeah.
So I have a different, and it may not be an extreme change in my emotion, but I talked about my lipstick. I'm like, it made me smile, right? And so that was a different intention. And as we flowed with the conversation, our point of view changed, our intention changed to help us to go along and flow with the storyline.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that if you bosses listening in can have fun, treat it like a board game, have fun with your actor friend or your accountability buddy or even with your husband, have fun and take a few minutes and say, okay, what are all the things I'm using in my world here that can be helpful to the delivery of the read? But, wait a second, what's the intention? What's the intention of this? Why do I take a moment and put this on? There's a reason for it. There's a purpose for it. Whatever that is. Why do I pick up my water bottle and drink it? Sure, it makes me feel good and it's delicious, but the intention is what? To hydrate, to be clean, to be healthy, right? Why do I drink my coffee cup if I'm delivering a script, right? It's not just for Anne to see that I'm drinking coffee. It's for me to feel energized, to feel warm, to feel connected. Coffee is a big psychological connector for a lot of people,
and notice all of the emotions that go along with that. I mean, that is something to really think about. I think that, I'm always telling my students that there's a purpose for every word. Even if you don't agree with all of the words that are there, there's a purpose for them being on the paper. Somebody somewhere at some point thought about what they wanted to communicate. And all of those words have meaning. So to just read through them as if they didn't have meaning or any point of view, I think is a disservice. It's a disservice to the copy. It's a disservice to the story that you're telling. And so no matter how nuanced it is, right? You don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm so happy. And then, I'm very, very, it doesn't have to be that to be dramatic. Nothing has to be dramatic. As a matter of fact, the more nuanced you are, I think, the more you can really connect. And the people that are listening, they'll get that. And sometimes I feel like nuances mean more. I really believe that.
Nuances are life.
Yeah, exactly. And it can really, really have meaning. And so I say, look for the meaning in the point of view. And the point of view to me is synonymous with bringing yourself to the copy, bringing an emotion to the copy that is reflective of how you feel the company would like to bring that emotion out to the potential client.
And hold on one second. Hold on. I thought I'm coughing.
All right. No problem.
I love nuances, though. I want to say something about that. My intention.
Now, see, there's a real world moment there where Lau is actually having a little bit of a coughing spell. And see, and I've reacted to it with a little bit of concern. I don't mind if you show that too, Anne. I don't mind if you keep that in because the intention sometimes changes with the same item. So we don't have to stay static on our intentions is exactly what you're saying. The nuance of being hydrated is important. We do it and we know it's important. But see how my intention changed. I had to get myself out of the coughing fit. Sure.
By dealing with the vocal folds quickly so that I could continue the conversation. So it deepened. The stakes got higher. It became much more important that I drank the water.
Oh, yeah,
right? So the
absolutely.
prop in itself changes. It changes. The intention gets deeper. You change it. You have the
Mhm.
power. You have the superpower to take your environment and have it utilize it in your
Mhm.
favor
Mhm.
to solve your problem or to fill your need.
And I think also, so it goes beyond just like a surface. Here are some words on a piece of paper. Let me read them and let me try to figure out what this company is saying. Like what we've done is we've actually brought in so many components of our real world experiences to help us to tell this story better. And I think it warrants, bosses, it warrants a little bit of time from you before you run in your studio and do your audition. I say this all the time. I feel like there's this, I don't know, a long time ago, there was like somebody said, you must do this many auditions in a day. And all of a sudden we become like, I must get 60 auditions out a day in order to be successful in voiceover. And in reality, like getting 60 auditions out a day probably does nothing for your performance in terms of if you're just so intent on rushing through them and you're not thinking about what's the story? How am I going to bring this to life? And I believe it takes a few minutes of your time, not a ton. You don't have to spend hours breaking apart a script, but you do need to spend a few minutes really kind of reading, rereading, trying to find out what is the true message. And again, I'm always saying sometimes we will get auditions and I'll be like, I have no idea what this is even talking about. Now, when that happens, that means that Anne has to look at the script again and really try to read those words, do my Google, Anne can Google, do my Google to find out what I can, if the product is listed or the company is listed, or even any phrase that seems like it might be a tagline. Google it. God, we are so lucky, right?
Oh,
To have that
so
and to
lucky.
just try to understand what is the story. Because again, somebody was paid probably a good deal of money to sit down and write that story. And you just may not be privy to what product it is or what company it is, but you have to understand what that story is. And I think a lot of times it's probably purposely vague because they want to see who the actors are. They want to see
Absolutely.
who can bring those words alive and tell the story. And that requires our imagination. And every time I ask somebody to think about corporate and what's your moment before when you're going to do this corporate responsibility, everybody's like, what? Like, what do you mean, what's my moment before? Why would I ever say this? And you really must, because to somebody at that company, it's their heart. Like, they're responsible.
Yeah.
Like, their corporate responsibility is this is their purpose. This is something probably that came very deep within, or I want to say this, I mean, unless you're an evil company, right? I mean, but for most companies, like my company mission, my company purpose come from a very deep within my soul, because I formed that company because I believed that I had a product that would help someone. And that's what I like to believe about all corporate scripts. And that helps me, by the way, to get into a purposeful and positive mind frame to be able to voice just about any corporate script, because that's how I assume every founder or owner of a company must feel at some point. Like, I'm going to form this company because I have this great idea. This is going to help people. And yeah, of course, maybe I can make some money too off of it. But I like to always consider the heart mission of a company or a product.
Love that. Love that, because it's
Mm-hmm.
so easy to
Yeah.
flatten out and just perfunctory
Mm-hmm.
eyes. I think I just made up a new word. Perfunctory eyes, meaning just not come with any sense of joy, energy,
Yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
imagination to something that you don't care about or you don't know about.
Yeah.
But to understand, and this is to me the true empathy factor of
Yes. Yes.
nuance. Like,
Yes.
to me, the more nuanced person, like, you're a tremendously nuanced person because you have a depth of understanding and knowledge and empathy of
Empathy is
what
huge.
someone else is going through and living through.
Yeah.
And you don't have to necessarily know or have experienced it yourself. You just
Sure.
have the knowledge and the history behind you to know it is a truth. It is their truth. And so I have to take a little bit of time to find intention
Yes.
to
Absolutely.
represent their truth. And that's nuance right there.
Yeah, I feel that if somebody asked me, what's the most important component as a voice actor that you can have, or what's the most important thing to think about as a voice actor to be authentic and believable and real when you're voicing a script, I would say empathy. and empathy toward your listener. Who is your listener? What are their joys? What are their pains? How can you help them? And how can what you're saying make them feel better, look better, I don't know, make more money, make them healthier, whatever it is. Come from a place of service. I just really believe that empathy is the one word that everybody should just have in their back pocket for a great read.
Well, the more you give, the more you do get. And sometimes the get is really like this inner true feeling, whatever that feeling is, that you then connect to the experience. And so you can bring that back to the experience. And so that's why I believe, as actors and as vocal actors, we get addicted to the work because we get addicted to the feeling of that authentic getting back. So the more we give, the more we potentially can get back. But we have to give true and authentic intention. And if we don't, then it's flat and it's kind of boring and we fizzle out quickly. We get exhausted from it.
Sure.
It's actually depleting.
And I think, how I can always tell I have a really great read is when I feel it. When I feel it. I don't hear it,
right?
But I feel it.
Right.
Because sometimes things just happen and it's just like, I don't know how that happened, but it just did. And it was amazing, right?
That's the magic.
That's the magic. And I wish that I had that for every single read that I do. And I think that as an actor is what I try to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Is the feel. It felt right. It felt good. It felt authentic and it felt believable. So I always try to tell people to just feel and not listen. And it's so hard to not listen because I think from a very young age, when I got behind the mic and all of a sudden my voice was amplified from that mic, right? Then I felt like, oh, now I have to sound even better. And interestingly enough, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for just the you that is amplified louder by a device that sits in front of you on a day-to-day basis. We're really just looking to connect with you.
That's right. And I would say be careful of chasing the high because a lot of people come in and whether it's the money or the feeling of excitement or whatever, don't get addicted to chasing the high or the dopamine kick. Just know it will be there at times for you, but you got to think of my analogy of you got to take the trash to the dump. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of groundwork that happens in order for you to come back to the clean home and go, ooh, smells fresh and I'm feeling good. So you can't get one without the other. You can't get the reward without the real work put in.
Absolutely. What a great analogy, Lau. Honestly, we could just all go home now. Take it to the dump. Bosses, take it to the dump and come back.
Take it to
the dump and come back refreshed. I love it. Lau, what a really cool discussion. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Bosses, as individuals, sometimes it can seem difficult to make a huge impact. But of course, we've been talking with Lau today and how we can make an impact. Well, if you ever wished that you could make more of an impact with your communities in ways that you never before thought possible, find out at 100voiceswhocare.org. And thank you so much to IPDTL that allows Lau and I to connect and have these amazing conversations. Find out more at ipdtl.com. You guys have an amazing week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Join us next week for another edition of VO Boss with your host, Ann Ganguza. And take your business to the next level. Sign up for our mailing list at voboss.com and receive exclusive content, industry revolutionizing tips and strategies, and new ways to rock your business like a boss. Redistribution with permission, coast-to-coast connectivity via IPDTL.
Just about $9.99. That's what you would say to your friends. $9.99.
$9.99.
I can't even say that in general. $9.99. $9.99. Yeah. I mean,
$9.99.
Sounds so boxy. It sounds so square. I said, well, it is boxy. It is square.
$9.99.